Call to order the October 8th, 2024 monthly business meeting for the South Rundle Water and Sewer Authority. I would like to welcome everyone here tonight. Thank you for coming. And we'll just go right on to the roll call.
Commissioner Gooch,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski,
Present.
Commissioner Karen,
Present.
Councilperson Daniels,
Present.
Councilperson Cheek,
Present.
Commissioner McLam,
Present.
Commissioner Way.
Present.
All are accounted for.
Okay, thank you. And now, Commissioner McLam, will you lead us in our invocation, please?
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Lord, be with us this evening as we come to you humbly with another hurricane coming to Florida, toward Florida way, after we were devastated less than 2 weeks ago in our own state. Lord, be with everybody that has to go through this and keep them all safe. And Lord, be with us this evening as we do what's best for SGWASA. All this we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And now Commissioner Way will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilperson Daniels.
Second.
Have a second by who was the second? Oh, Councilperson Cheek was the second there. Thank you. If any questions on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Public comments. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
We do not.
Approve the minutes.
Huh? Oh, gosh, yeah, I skipped one. I'm sorry. I skipped one here. I need to adjust my glasses. Review and approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? All right.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Way to approve.
Second by Vicky.
We have second by Councilperson Daniels. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Now we get to our public comments. Did anyone sign up for public comments?
They do not.
They did not. Is there anyone who like here tonight that'd like to speak that didn't get a chance to sign up? Okay, and did we have any emails? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to board discussion items. And let's see, I believe you had some.
That's funny. Yeah, go with that. Virginia had one.
Yeah, Mayor, Creedmoor Mayor Pro Tem Georgiana Kaczynski had a item for board discussion, and it was on Church Street repair.
So I want to discuss there's Church Street in Creedmoor has had a few repairs lately, and I've gotten a few phone calls. So Scott, can you explain to me what is the pending issue at Church Street in Creedmoor?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Commissioner. Thank you very much. So East Church Street, I believe that we're talking about here in the city of Creedmoor. It's an interesting street in terms of the utility configuration. Basically, we have multiple utility lines running parallel to each other down the street. I think we have a 6-inch, an 8-inch, and a 2-inch water line or thereof. Our GIS shows the actual line locations and the sizes. And what we have discovered, it's been brought to my attention over the last couple of years, is that we have some homes that are actually attached to the 2-inch water line on that street versus another size water line directly in front of their home that runs down the street as well. Over time, the resident service line has problems, basically gets corroded, galvanized service line, and our crew ends up going out and replacing that service line, basically by taking the service line from the house and taking it either across the street or into the street to attach it to a different water line. So basically changing the service over. Chris Summerlin, our assistant executive director, and I looked at this further this week as far as the project that's going on. And there's about 10 homes in the area that have this situation. In the last 5 years, we've had about 5 homes that we've changed over. So we don't have a dedicated program in place at this point to go out and make those changes, but we are doing them one by one, and sometimes we do 2 at a time as a problem occurs out there, or we're notified that there's been maybe a loss of pressure. So that's what's going on. So I think the last one we responded to in the last couple of weeks happened maybe on a Friday or Saturday night. And our crews responded to that person. And then I think we came out the next day and replaced the water line. So you'll see some patches, some asphalt patches on that street in that area. So that will continue until we put a program together actually to remove some of those problems out there as far as those galvanized. But that seems to be a particular area out there on that block where they're having some problems. So.
Anything further?
So, before we go on any further, I would like to recognize that senatorial candidate Ashley Adams is in the audience tonight. Ashley, can you stand up? Thank you for attending tonight and your concern about SGWASA.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is the lead and copper rule revision program update. And I think we have a presentation from Hazen and Sawyer.
We do, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. And I would just like to do a little bit of a lead into the presentation here before we bring up John Sorrell, professional engineer with Hazen & Sawyer, who's with us this evening. So just some background information on this program. The U.S. EPA agency lead and copper rule revision, the LCRR as we refer to it, became effective in December of 2021. And the LCRR includes a time frame for utilities to meet the new regulatory requirements with an initial compliance date of October 16th, 2024. So actually this month. And we've been working hard for the last couple of years to prepare for our submittal to meet that deadline. The lead and copper rule revision includes various actions to reduce lead exposure in the drinking water, which is very important. As with all public water utilities, SGWASA must comply with the EPA-approved lead and copper rules. SGWASA determined its best approach and its best course of action to meet the LCRR requirements was to hire an experienced engineering consulting firm with expertise in lead and copper management mitigation programs. SGWASA went through the required request for qualifications program and determined that Hazen & Sawyer was the most qualified engineering consultant to manage this program for us. At the March 14th, 2023 Board of Directors regular meeting, the Board of Directors approved the Hazen & Sawyer LCRR engineering proposal at a not-to-exceed cost of $349,173. So we have a representative this evening, John Sorrell from Hazen & Sawyer, who's going to do a presentation for the board and the public to provide an update and an overview of the lead and copper rule revision program and where we stand and what we have ahead of us. So I would like to bring up at this time John Sorrell. If you'll come up to the podium, please, and we'll prepare your presentation. And please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, board. My name is John Sorrell. I'm an engineer with Hazen & Sawyer. Scott, I really appreciate the introduction. That gives a really good framework for what we're going to talk about today. So as we dive through the presentation today, if you've got questions, ask questions. I'll try to pause throughout because we've got a lot of meat to get through. And as we dive in, Crystal, if you could go 2 slides down. What we're going to start with today is an overview of the lead and copper rule. And we're going to start with dates. We're going to heavily be looking at this October 16th date that you see on the left for the lead and copper rule revisions. We'll talk more about what's in that as we move forward. We're also going to talk a little bit looking forward to that October 27th date for the lead and copper rule improvements. These rules are continuing to evolve. We have the lead and copper rule improvements was actually published today, and we are diving into that and looking in that in detail as we speak. But you'll notice that this chart goes all the way out through 2037 and beyond. This is not something that is a once and done project that ends. This is an ongoing, continuous effort. So we're going to spend most of our time today down in that green box in the bottom left-hand corner, looking at the deliverables that are going out in October, the communication that goes into that, and the background work that went into that. We're also going to look forward a little bit to those near-term deliverables that are October 2027 in the 3-year time frame. And so that's the bulk of what we're going to look at today. So in that green box, you're going to see the inventory. And that's the heart of the lead and copper rule. We'll dive in and we'll talk a little bit about what goes into the inventory. We're going to talk about the customer communication and the notifications that go out related to that inventory. And finally, the notifications and compliance reporting that goes into that. So that's going to be the heart of where we are today. If you could hit the next slide. As we talk about the inventory, I want to lay a little groundwork for what we're inventorying and what the interest of the rule is. So the lead and copper rule, the focus is heavily on the lead end of that. It's the same sampling that's done for lead and copper, but the primary concern that we're looking for is on the lead end of that. When we look at this, you see a diagram in front of you of a water service line, like Scott was talking about on Church Street, connected into a water main. And the first thing I want you to notice on this is it's divided up into the utility owned and customer owned. A unique aspect of the lead and copper rule is that it's focused on both the public and private side infrastructure. And it's concerned primarily with the materials of that service line up to and including the plumbing in the home for water quality purposes. That's a little unique in the public utility world that it's concerned with plumbing, and it poses some challenges as we look at that because there's not a great material inventory of what plumbing materials are installed in people's houses. It's not something that utilities have been required to track in the past. This is something that every utility in the U.S. is wrestling with right now as they try to develop these inventories of both the public side material and the private side material. You'll notice the connector, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail as we dive in. Most of what EPA is concerned about here is the full lead service lines, those that people associate with Flint, Michigan. And so that's the primary heart, is trying to find full lead service lines. There's also opportunities for lead in other components. Lead solder, which was banned at a later date and could be present on copper pipes. There's also smaller lead connectors that were used in certain periods of time. You'll hear them called a lead gooseneck or a lead connector that could be out at the street. The last thing I want you to notice on this slide is the opportunities to identify pipe material within the house. We'll talk about that when we get to public communication as we look at how do we identify those materials that are on the private side and some opportunities to do that in the communication that we're sending out. I'll pause here for a minute. Does anybody have questions about the nature of the service line inventory and what we're looking at? Awesome. And I told Scott I'm really happy with being interrupted, so feel free to jump in if you do. If you'll hit the next slide. So within that public side, the customer, the utility owned, and within the private side, customer owned portion, the state wants all of those service lines categorized as you see in front of you. They want each of those to have a designation of non-lead, full lead service line, galvanized requiring replacement, or lead status unknown. And when we look at these, I'm a big believer in leading with the punchline. We've not identified any full lead service lines. We haven't found that in any of our records research, field work, and that's great. That's a good place to be in. As we dive through the rest of this, we'll be talking about both the public side and the private side. So an individual service could have a category of non-lead for the public or non-lead for the private or unknown for either of those. And so you'll see, we'll talk about that on both sides of the meter. If you could hit the next slide. So from there, I'm going to dive into the research that we've done and how we've categorized some of these and the results of the inventories we've gone in. So if you could hit the next one. It's a little bit of an orientation. The lead and copper rule is not new. So there's been efforts dating all the way back into the 80s to remove lead. We've known lead was problematic for quite some time. The one that most people know of and associate with are the bans that happened between 86 and 88, which is when lead solder was banned. And so Those bands you'll hear a lot about, and we'll be talking about heavily. There have been further strengthenings of that have come out in 91 with the lead and copper rule itself. There was a Lead Reduction Act in 2011 that removed lead from fixtures and other things. And then finally, the lead and copper rule revisions, which were published in 2021, which is what we're here to talk about today. I told you that whole story to tell you when we talk about this, we're going to be talking heavily about unknowns, and we're going to be talking heavily about 1988. If you hit the next slide. The reason we're doing that is we can use broad assumptions knowing that the codes banned these lead service lines, the full lead pipes, both on the public side and the private side. So in 1988, lead was banned for the public side. And if you hit the next slide, in the plumbing codes on the private side, the word lead was deleted from the list of allowable pipe materials in 1981. There was also the full lead ban that came in 87 and would have been in effect for any homes that were constructed in 1988 moving forward. And so as we talk about this, 88 is a pretty pivotal year. But we think based on the research we've done that even as early as 81, the risk of having lead is significantly reduced based on the records review that we've done. Could you hit the next slide? So I'll introduce the inventory and what we've done. So as I mentioned, we've looked heavily at plumbing codes. We've dug through record drawings. I want to give kudos to Scott and Joel and staff. You guys have a great library of record drawings that have come from the systems. There's a lot to dive through, and staff's been really helpful in running through that. We also have a lot of GIS information that we can use that's built in. And we're trying to continue building that as we go forward with this project and do research. We've also had field identification, where we've been able to go out in particular areas and identify materials. One of the biggest sources that we've got nationwide for this is actually property tax data. We have a year built for all the structures that we can use, and that's really, really helpful. So I'll start with the punchline and looking at the overall inventory and what we've done. So as we've taken that first cut of things that are post-88 for year built or post-88 for public side infrastructure that we can verify for record drawings, we've got 2,604 service lines that based on those cuts, we've been able to designate as definitively non-lead, both sides. Those we can say, no further research, those are non-lead, and we've got great information there. Stepping up to that next tier, and those are represented by full green circles on the map. Generally, when you see the circles on these maps, the left side of the circle represents the public side, the right side of the circle represents the private side material. Stepping up to that next from the bottom, looking at non-lead versus unknown non-lead on the public side, what those would represent are potentially infrastructure replacements, where there's a new water main that was installed, but the house is pre-81. Or in the case of STEM, water system was installed to an area that had older houses. Older houses were connected. You don't know what the plumbing materials are inside those houses. So that's heavily what you see in that box of 1,604 is new infrastructure post-88 in the street, and unknowns in the house, pre-88 in the house. Next box that you see coming up is unknown on the public side, but non-lead on the private side. So that's the opposite of that. That would be a new house on an old water main. And in the absence of a record to say that the service line was installed at the date the house went in, you make an assumption that that service line could have been originally installed with the main. And then lastly are those that are unknown on both sides. Those are places where the records indicate that you are pre-1988 for both the public and the private side. And if you go back and look at record drawings, there may not be a material specified on a lot of the old plans. They were silent on a lot of those. And so those are places where you have an unknown material on both sides. Now, I've got some more detailed maps that we can dive into that zoom in on Butner and Creedmoor and STEM, but I'll pause there. Any questions on this before we go deeper?
So it says unknown non-lead. Is this just addressing the lead portion, or is it addressing lead and copper?
So this is heavily on lead, and
Okay.
that's what they're asking for on the inventory at this stage. And I told you the focus, it's the lead and copper rule because on the sampling side, you're sampling for both, but the focus is heavily on lead. And so these are the designations they're asking for is non-lead.
Thank you.
Great question. Anything else? All right, if you could hit the next slide. So I'll give you a zoomed in view of Butner and what we found in the Butner area. And it's fascinating. I'm a little bit of a records geek. And so as we dive into this, you guys have a lot of plans for the old portion of Camp Butner that was installed. And those plans do specify material. They specify galvanized as the material for the small diameter. And while galvanized is not great from a repair standpoint, it does break and it does fail. It is a non-lead material, which is great that we've got that. And so you'll see in the core of downtown Butner, we've got, in a lot of cases, good non-lead designations on some of the older areas, which in another system would be higher risk to find lead materials. But we have some unknowns on the house side. And so you'll see that pretty consistently. You'll also see some pockets of subdivisions that are newer. Those subdivisions are all green because it's places that we know all that infrastructure and the houses went in post 88. You'll also see some pockets where it's unknown, and that might be a place where the infrastructure went in, again, pre 88. Records are silent on what those materials are and what went in. And so as you look at Butner overall, that's what we see from a trend standpoint in this area. If you'll hit the next slide. Looking at Creedmoor, we see a little bit of a different picture, and your system is unique, being a merged utility with different records and different systems. You've got a lot of new subdivisions that are in the periphery of the Creedmoor area where we can get to a non-lead designation on both sides pretty easily. You've also got some areas in that core of downtown where you have an unknown on both sides. There are some main replacements that have been done historically in that downtown core area where we know that we have a non-lead designation. We've got a record that the service line was replaced with a new service line to the meter, but we don't have a record of what's on the private side. So a little bit of a mixed bag in downtown Creedmoor because of some of the past replacement work that's been done. If you'll hit the next slide. STEM is a third different story. So water system was installed out to STEM post 1988. And so we know that a lot of the infrastructure that went in out there was post lead ban. And so you'll see almost exclusively the public side we know is non-lead, but there were some older houses that were out there before the water system existed that have since been connected into the system. And so those are places where I mentioned before where you see in that third bucket down where you're non-lead on the public side, unknown on the private side. That's what those would be. If you'll hit the next slide. So kind of coming up to the big picture, what do we do with this information? The first thing I want you to know is unknown does not mean lead. Unknown means unknown. And I want to make sure that that's explicitly clear. There is from the rule standpoint, as we communicate it, they want to communicate that there is a risk, right? That there could be lead. And so you'll see that in a lot of the communication language that we look at moving forward. What that could look like, I mentioned the connectors at the beginning, and we come back to that. There's a potential for connectors that would be lead on some of those. Those they want to track. They want to remove them as you find them, but they're not treating those connectors as full lead service lines. It's in a different tier. I also want to dive in and talk about what we do and how we resolve some of these unknowns with next steps. And some of that is a neat opportunity to do that with the communication language, especially those unknowns that are on the customer side. I'll pause here before we drive into communication and some of that. Any questions here before we move forward? Awesome. Next slide. And one more. So the rule is fairly stringent and fairly straightforward about what communication needs to be done. They've crafted required language that goes in that communication. The first communication you need to know about is that top one, the annual notification of lead service line, galvanized requiring replacement, and unknown. That's a printed letter. It has to go out every year, and that's why that graph goes all the way out to the right. As long as you have unknowns, any customer with an unknown needs to get a notification that they have an unknown every year. The first of those needs to go out and be postmarked no later than November 15th. And so it's part of the reason we wanted to talk about this today and where we're at. Those notification letters will go out, and you notice that there's some additional supporting materials that are there. They want some language that's included in that on health impacts of lead, how you can reduce your exposure globally, not just on the water side. Instructions for how do I find out what my material is? How do I, if I was looking in my home, how would I identify that material? So all of that's required, but there's also things that we can do over and above beyond that. To help provide some extra context, provide some additional material. So if you hit the next slide, two more actually. These are coming in slowly. The animation is catching me. There we go. Of the three types of notifications, right now we have not identified lead service lines. We have not identified galvanized requiring replacement service lines. That would be a galvanized line on the customer side that's downstream of a full lead service line. And those, they want to track those in case the lead has migrated out and is in the galvanized service line itself. What we have in the system is unknowns. And so what you're going to see going out in November is this third tier of unknowns. And that includes a statement that your line is unknown, but it may be lead. It'll include that information on health effects, how to reduce exposure, and opportunities to identify your material. So if you hit the next slide, we're doing this a couple ways. It's not a requirement, but going over and above, we're putting out a public inventory map. And so this is something we want customers to be able to find their information easily. We want them to be able to dial in and access that and see where they're at. So this will be going out along with the inventory that's submitted to NCDEQ by October 16th. This public inventory map will be available. You can search by address, you can browse in, and when you click on your parcel, you'll see some version of the information that you see in front of you. It'll give you the utility side status, it'll give you the customer side status. And if your customer side status is unknown, there will be additional language there that points you out to the customer survey, which gives the customers an opportunity to self-identify their material. If they know it, if they're comfortable doing that, that's great. We want to tap into that, and we want to give them the ability to control the information that's out there if they have it and they want to populate it. Get the next slide. So this will take them to a customer survey, and this customer survey provides some information. It's got a high-level note on there on who to contact. They have questions, they have information, and from here, through a similar map view, it will take them directly in. If they access the customer survey independently, they'll land on this splash screen. They can zoom in on the map. If they access it from the public map, it'll take them directly to their parcel, pre-populate the address. And we have form fields built so that they can give us exactly the information and answer the questions that we need in order to make sure that we're getting the information we need for the non-lead designation. We've got places for them to upload required pictures so that those pictures come in, and Joel and staff have the opportunity to review that and make sure we've actually got the information we need in order to make that a non-lead designation. So as this goes out and our customer notifications go out, there will be a link that will take them into the map. There will also be a request that they fill out the customer survey for those customer side unknowns, which will help us populate and resolve those unknowns on the customer side. You'll hit the next slide. Talk a little bit about next steps and where we go from here. So we hit October 16th. We've got the public inventory submitted to DEQ, so we're in compliance. We have the public-facing web map out so that customers can access it. We have customer survey so that customers can access that data and populate the information that we need for non-lead on the customer side. And we've checked that first box for the initial service line inventory for October 16th. We've met that deadline. Moving forward over the next 3 years is working on the replacement plan. So if you have unknowns, how do you address those remaining unknowns and having a plan to address them? So not having removed them, not having identified them, but having a plan to move forward with those. Looking at a list of compliance sampling sites. So based on what you now know about the system and the material inventory, where do you sample for water quality sampling, and how does that change from the sampling sites that you've done in the past? And then lastly, looking forward at school and child care facility testing. So with the LCRI, it made some changes to that today. That comes out in the 2028 timeframe for school and child care facility testing. We've already started some work on that proactively. We've pulled together a list of that from a handful of different sources and open lines of communication in the school system to work forward towards those efforts. The notification letters will go out by November 15th. So those will go out to customers for any customers that have an unknown on the public side or on the private side, pointing them back towards the resources we have available both there and on the website. And as we look forward over these next 3 years, how do we deal with those unknowns? So we've looked at, you don't necessarily need to dig down on every single unknown. The state has an allowable approach where they'll allow you to do a statistically significant random sample of the unknowns, which works out to somewhere between 300 and 400 sites for the number of unknowns that you have. With that random sample, then you can then do some analysis on the back end and pursue a non-lead designation based on that random sample. So for the 3,000 plus unknowns that we've got, you might be digging on 300 of those, either through in-house resources or through a contracted SUE company. And so that can get you over the next few years into a place where you may be able to address your unknowns and apply for a non-lead designation. The second thing that we want to make sure we do over the next few years is look for funding opportunities. This is one of the rare cases where we don't have an unfunded mandate from the federal government and the state. They've actually set aside a substantial amount of funding for both the inventory purposes as well as for replacement. And so as we get further down the road, we want to make sure we watch those opportunities, and if it fits a need here, we potentially look at applying for some of those resources. So that's where we are. That's where we're going over the near term. I'll stop there. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about when the customer can go in and do a survey based on, so it would help with the unknowns there.
Yep.
How will that affect the graph? Will there be a time that you're going to update that periodically so we can get a better picture of where we are?
That's a great question. So the way we've got it built, the systems are linked. And so if a customer submits a survey, we want it tied to that data point. We don't want paper floating around. So it's tied to that data point in GIS. It goes into a review queue for an application that SGWASA staff has available and has access to. They can review the material. So it doesn't change immediately just based on the customer's word. They can review it. And if they approve it, then it updates the material and updates the map. So the idea is all the records tied together. We don't want to duplicate it. We want to make it as smooth as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The question, you spoke of funds, but I'm thinking you're talking about that would help SGWASA in replacement of some of those materials, not funding for the residents.
That's correct. And so some of the state funding that's available is available for both the public and private side. So if you do wind up in a situation where there are private side replacements required, some of the funding sources that are being designated and set aside for that do have the ability to be used on the private side for replacement, which is somewhat unique in terms of state funding. But because the mandates are both public and private, there are some sources out there for that.
Do you know the name of the program or the title?
Yeah, so all of that's running through the State Division of Water Infrastructure, and they have multiple buckets of funds that are earmarked in different ways, but we can provide a list of those.
You don't know which water infrastructure, do you?
In terms of?
The name of the organization?
Yeah, so it's through the State Division of Water Infrastructure.
Okay, NCDEQ?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're a division of DEQ.
So our elderly citizens that don't
use technology?
Yeah.
Are they going to have a paper survey, and then they can still call and get the people to come help them fill it out? And
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've talked about that. And the thought was with those, if they needed to come in person and talk to somebody, we know that there's going to be a pathway for people to do that. Even if you went all electronic, somebody's going to show up in person, make a phone call. And so we've tried to leave breadcrumbs for that so that if they need to have a phone call, there's a contact on the survey where they can go do that. But we want to have it set up so that most of your customers are driving into the electronic portal that is seamless and consistent. But for those that need to come and do it in paper, they have the contact information to be able to do that.
Thank you for thinking about me, Rob.
I believe you said something about taking photos.
Yes.
So you're wanting the homeowner to tell you what they have and take photos of what they have.
That's great.
Now, are you speaking about the in-house?
That's right.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, right? You get some people that will and some people that won't.
That's what I was thinking. Once you said photos, you kind of lost me because some people are going to say, I'm not doing all that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that in as much as you can get it, it's a great data source for those customers that are willing to do it. And the more you build that data set, the more you can help infer about what's around. But it is one of those things where you get some degree of cooperation with it, but not amazing.
Now, what about their water line from the house to where they receive the water for coming in from SGWASA? How would I guess you would know it.
I mean, the stuff that's already
in the ground,
yeah, put in when they built the home.
Yeah.
So for those that are currently unknown, generally the approach would be if you do that random sampling, then you would dig on both sides of the meter.
Both sides of the meter.
You do a small vacuum excavation test hole on both sides of the meter, verify the material, and that gives you a point of verification. The state is currently accepting 1 point of verification on the private side material, which could be in the home or it could be behind the meter. But there is an opportunity to help populate that data alongside the public side data when you go and do those verifications.
How would the private side obtain that soil sample?
Generally,
on their land.
Yeah. So generally that's done in communication with the homeowners, and it's very tight up close to the meter. And so you're not,
You want
this is
to
not,
collect it properly.
that's right. This is not deep in the yard. This is up close in the right of way adjacent to the meter.
Okay. I have a question for our executive director. What do you think about before everybody gets a letter? Can we do some type of form or how else can we communicate before they receive the letter?
Yes, thank you for that question. So we have opportunities here working with our PIO to push out information ahead of time before the letter arrives. So we have a campaign that we can market, push this information out to tell people what the program is, what's coming, and what to expect, and how you can help us to populate those forms. Because the more information we can get, the better for our inventory, the less cost it is for us to mail letters out. And it reduces our cost to go out and do these excavations, which we will have to do at some point. So that's on the horizon for us as well. So we will put that package together and provide that information. This evening was really kind of the kickoff of that presentation for the board and for the public to understand the program. So we have this opportunity this evening for this presentation, for the Q&A, and then this information will be available on our website as well, so we can refer to this as we're pushing information out to all of the communities that we serve, so that when they get a letter or notification in the future, they'll maybe recognize those resources and be able to populate those surveys or contact us, and we can help them populate those surveys as well. That's an opportunity that we have. And I think that you can see from the timeline, we've got many years to work on this program. SGWASA has been very aggressive from the beginning in this program and taken the opportunity to say, and I think, John, you told me initially when we started this program, here are some things that are required by utilities of this size or greater, and this size or less are not required. And we fell into the not required to do certain things, and I said, no, I want to do this. I want to move in this direction. I want to be aggressive with this program to try to shorten that deadline or that time horizon for us as best we can, so that we can ensure we know what's out there in the field, because then there possibly may be a construction program to go out and start working on these as well to get them eliminated. I think the good news is, as John said, we don't have a lot of these connections throughout our service area, but we do have unknowns that we still have to determine where we're going with that program.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's really good.
And as you can tell from presentation, it's increasingly more important to direct traffic to the website, to the SGWASA website. And as council members and commissioners, we need to go back to our respective boards, encourage everyone there to direct traffic to the SGWASA website. And also anybody you come in contact with in the public, you encourage them to get in the habit of going to that website and spending time on it, so that you can see what's going on with lead and copper, among other things, and you be prepared to fill out these surveys. And that would be a tremendous help to the staff and to the engineering firm. Is there any further comments?
Anything else from the board before we conclude? No? Okay, I would just like to say it's been a pleasure working with Hazen and Sawyer, and John is the project manager for the team. He has an excellent team. We work on this project all the time. We have meetings paced out about every 2 weeks through this, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us moving forward with this program. But so far, I think we're doing very well, being aggressive to meet the needs and the requirements of the EPA for this program. So I would just like to say, John, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, now our next item of business is the South Carolina Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors meeting schedule for 2025. And if you turn to your page 18, you'll see the schedule there. We only have one adjustment, and that would be to the November 2025 meeting. Our meeting is scheduled for the 11th, which is Veterans Day, and we want to move that to Wednesday, November 12th. Is there, Mr. Roy, you have any comments?
No, sir. Thank you for this. Is this item and the next item are annual items, if you will, for the board that we bring in front of you. And I noticed when we were looking at our schedule, there was a conflict, so it's appropriate to bring this to the board's attention, for the board to decide how they want to manage that Tuesday evening meeting, either pulling it back to Monday or moving it to Wednesday. So of course it's the board's decision. I did make a recommendation just to move it to the Wednesday, November 12th, but it's up to the board to decide when they would like to have that meeting.
Any discussion, any comments?
I have a conflict on that day, that evening.
Okay.
You're scheduled that far out. You are a busy woman.
Must be your anniversary.
Does anyone else have any conflicts? And I believe Monday night there's other meetings scheduled.
Is everybody good with Thursday the 13th? We can move it to Thursday the 13th, if everybody's okay with it.
I'm good with that date.
I have a conflict that day.
That's not going to work.
Sorry.
You see it.
Some calendars that far out.
I know, right?
Nothing on my calendar that far out.
Well, it's like recurring meetings.
How about the 18th, Tuesday the 18th?
One person can't make it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
so
I just want to let them know.
just
Tuesday the 18th? No?
I'm just saying you should just go ahead and have it Wednesday. And there's always going to be somebody missing at some time. It's never, I mean, most of the time everybody's here, but it is getting.
We could excuse you from that meeting if it's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
if that's acceptable.
Usually good.
It is.
If that's acceptable. Okay, well, do I hear a motion from anyone?
Motion to approve the schedule as written.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? We'll go to the vote then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item 11 is a holiday observance schedule, and this is for information only. And this just sets aside the holidays for next year. Mr. Troy, you have any comments on this, or
Not
does
too
it
much.
speak for itself?
I think it speaks for itself. Again, this is an item that we bring to the board annually about this time of year, just so that you know in front of us and our team members know what our holiday schedule is, especially in case there have been any adjustments, modifications to the upcoming year, and that is not the case here. The holidays that are being observed in 2025 are the same holidays basically reflected in the current year 2024. So again, just informational only, just to keep this in front of the board so that you're aware of our holiday schedule.
Motion to approve.
We don't need one. Oh, it's information only.
Great.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Then we'll move on to item 12, and that's our amended fiscal year 24-25 scheduled rate fees and charges. This is adoption of those. Mr. Soroya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, so as the board will recall, recently the Board of Directors reviewed and approved legislation regarding the updated fee for late payment fee schedule. That was at the August board meeting, and updated fees for the system development fees. That was at the September board meeting regarding system development fee report that was done, and the board adopted that. At each of those meetings, the staff suggested and recommended that the board consider approving the schedule of rates, fees, and charges reflecting those changes at the October board meeting. So that's where we are this evening. So we've kind of postponed some of those items to bring those to the schedule of rates, fees, and charges. Now, what's important to note is that this schedule is a companion piece to our budget. So the board actually approved our fiscal year 24-25 budget this year and this document as well. Now, the updated fee for late payment fee schedule was approved in August by the board, and the fees for the system development fees were approved by September. So those fees are already in effect. We're memorializing this evening in this document because this is where those rates actually sit within this companion piece here. So I provided for the board of directors updates on the different schedules that we had, and you'll see the first schedule is the updated late fee payment schedule. And this resides in our book that's attached here to your agenda in section 4.1, late payment fees. And just to bring the board up to speed, we adjusted the late payment fee on past due balances from $5 to $10, and that was the only change, and that change is reflected in the schedule of rates and fees that the board is reviewing tonight for approval. Secondly, were the updated system development fees found in sections 5.1 and 5.2. So a little bit more detail here. The board remembers the report in September that we went through, and also the public hearing that we had, and we had a presentation as well by the consultant to talk about the study that's required that the utility does, and all utilities do every 5 years, to look at their calculations and how they come up with their system development fees. And there was a recommendation to establish and make adjustments to our system development fees for water and sewer. So I have presented for you this evening on page 20 and 21 basically what those fees are associated for system development fees. For one ERU for water is $1,800, and then there's a schedule following that related to meter sizes and the associated ERUs. And then you have in table 5.2 the same thing, only reflecting sewer. System development fees per one ERU, which is an equivalent residential unit, and that's $4,574. So you will see that schedule on that page 21 as well. So we do have the FY 24-25 schedule of rates, fees, and charges document that has been updated to reflect these changes. And that document is part of your agenda this evening. So we are asking the Board of Directors to consider approving the amended version, which is attached, of the FY 24-25 schedule of rates, fees, and charges. I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board members may have regarding this item.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Commissioner McLam, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner McLam,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kaczynski. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item 13, grease control chemicals for wastewater collection system, request for sole source purchase of chemicals.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, this item regards a purchase request for chemicals. And this purchase amount is above my threshold for approval, so this item appears in front of the board this evening. This project deals with chemicals that we use for fats, oils, and grease, commonly known as FOG, our FOG program. And proper management and disposal of FOG are crucial to prevent blockages and maintain the efficiency of the wastewater system. SGWASA has a FOG policy in place along with a sewer use ordinance, and we have enforcement compliance as well. This program is managed by our wastewater treatment division, and they do a great job for us. FOG control programs are used for the following key reasons: preventing blockages, maintaining system efficiency, protecting the environment, reducing odors, and improving treatment process. So special chemicals are used to control and emulsifiers, which break down fats and oils into smaller particles and biological additives. The chemicals that are used are proprietary. We have worked with various vendors over the last couple of years to test different components and different chemicals in our system to find out who has the best chemical treatment for our FOG program and at the best cost. And what we've discovered over the last couple of years working with different manufacturers is that the Cape Fear Water Solutions Company has provided the best FOG reduction solution for us in terms of their chemical proprietary mix. Due to this identification of Cape Fear Water Solutions as the preferred vendor, we would like to identify them as the sole source vendor for the FOG control chemicals. And based on that, we did not seek any additional proposals from other companies at this point. However, I will tell you that during the last couple of years we've been going through this program, that we find the program cost for this is lower cost than some of the other companies we were using, and it does a fantastic job. So in terms of our recommendation, and I have a couple of slides I want to share with you as well as far as attachments, we're seeking approval to purchase $77,000 worth of FOG control chemicals for our program from the Cape Fear Water Solutions Company. This FOG control program expense is for 10 months of FOG chemical treatment at 7 pump stations. The monthly cost is $1,100 per pump station. And this program, if approved, will run from October of this year through June, July of next year. And the pump stations being treated for FOG control are the ones that are associated with the greatest amount of FOG problems. In terms of the financials, the FY 24-25 approved budget includes $181,400 for the purchase of chemicals for both the wastewater collection system and the water distribution system. Staff is requesting the Board of Directors approve a sole source purchase with the Cape Fear Water Solutions Company for $77,000 for the FOG control program. The attachments we have for you this evening include a sole source affidavit letter from Cape Fear Water Solutions Company. And more importantly, I think this evening is Exhibit B, which is the pre and post treatment pictures of a pump station using FOG control chemicals. My recommendation is the Board of Directors approve the purchase of FOG chemicals from the Cape Fear Water Solutions Company for the not to exceed amount of $77,000, excluding local and state taxes. I would like to have brought up on screen just the before and after, and maybe you can get that on the screen better for us in full view. So what we're pulling up here is a before and after picture of a pump station using FOG control chemicals. And this is our Robertson Creek pump station. This is one of our larger pump stations. It's a triplex pump station, meaning we have 3 pumps in that facility for us. And if you will go back to change your view there just so it's oriented. There we go. So the debris floating on the top is what we call the grease. Fats, oils, and grease. And of course, they're going to float on top of the water. And when that debris gets into our pumps and into our system, it causes problems as far as the maintenance and breakdown of that equipment. Additionally, that grease can settle out into a pipe and actually form in a pipe and create a blockage as well. And then we have to bring special equipment in to remove that grease from the line as well. So we do have an educational program out there to notify and market to our customers to reduce fats, oils, and grease and not pour them down the sink. That's basically where this problem comes from. We do have fog control, and we do have a program in place for vendors at our food establishments. So we actually do inspections of those places, so we can manage that. The second photo is a photo after, I think it's 1 month of treatment. And I'm not sure if you can see it in the detail here, but you can actually see the reflection of the sky in that basin there. So just to give you an idea how effective this product is for us. So although we can't prevent everything from going down the drain as far as the grease, we have an ability here to add these chemicals at this point to capture it at that station and in other stations around our collection system to reduce that at that point and send it down the line. So it is very effective and very cost effective for us. Hence the proposal that you have in front of you this evening to spend the money for this chemical. Thank you.
Any questions?
So the budget already approved the chemicals, we're just approving taking these out of that budget?
Correct.
Okay. That's just one clarification.
Yeah. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the purchase of the fog for a not to exceed amount $77,000 from Cape Fear Water Solutions.
We have a motion by Vice Chair and Mayor Pro Tem Georgiana Kaczynski. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Wade. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And we're on to our next item, Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement approval. We're going to work on you some more.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Board of Directors. This item is regarding a Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement that I would like to get approval to enter. Approval from the Board of Directors. It's for a 5-year commitment at this point, or a contract to provide enterprise services for all of the entities in SGWASA. When I say entities, I'll call them business centers, if you will. Our wastewater treatment plant, our water treatment facility, and our administration building. So as many of you have noticed over the last several years, as we increase our business in the cloud and the activities and the connectivity, we have a greater demand for bandwidth and speed for applications. So software as a service up in the cloud has become more and more popular over the last 10 years. And SGWASA does not have, if you will, a connected internet or network throughout the entire entity here. So we have different communications resources and cables coming into our different facilities. One of the most challenging places that we have is our wastewater treatment plant. And for those of you that have visited the wastewater treatment plant, you'll recognize that it goes down a hill and down a hill and down a hill and kind of sits in a bowl. Well, that's good for getting sewer down to that location from our service area. However, it's so far away from other communications and sitting low in a bowl that we are very troubled with internet services, connectivity, phone service in that area. And so they are required to basically function at the speed of light as well, the speed of business like the rest of us. But we just haven't been able to meet the challenges of providing them with that conduit for that cable, if you will. Now, we've tried a lot of things from phone lines to cables, and currently we're using a satellite downlink to provide service down there, but that's spotty as well. And it's relatively expensive considering what we get, unfortunately, but it's better than nothing. That's how we look at it at this point. So we started looking several years ago at how to basically bridge this gap and get us all connected and to get better speed and communications amongst us. And presently, we do not have a connection or a network between all of our facilities, so we're kind of on standalone islands. Now, we've been able to function, but we can be a better business and have better resources if actually we have that connectivity amongst us. So we started to search and research what would it take to get better internet service or cabling or fiber optics connections down to the wastewater treatment plant, to the water treatment plant, and to this facility. Well, we are lucky at this facility with the town of Butner and in this location that we do have fiber optic capabilities to us, right to this building, which is great. Check the box. At the water plant, we have fiber optic cables available about 200 feet away from the water plant. So that's relatively close. When it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, the last fiber that we have on the roadway basically is the Veterans Center, which I think most of you know where the Veterans Center is located. So we actually have location or the spectrum fiber available to us at that location. The next challenge is getting that fiber down to the wastewater treatment plant. So we looked at a couple different ways to achieve that. One was to do a direct bury of cable down to that location, hire a vendor, come in, put it underground and take that cable down such that we would own that cable. And I think initially we were looking at costs of $350,000 to $400,000 to do that. And again, that would be SGWASA hiring a contractor to run that cable for us. On top of that, you would have termination, you would have cabling issues, any maintenance, we'd have to hire someone to do that as well, any breaks in the line, so on and so forth. We started to have some conversations with Spectrum about this. And initially their comments were, it's too far to go, it's only one customer, we're not interested. So we continued to communicate with them over the years and push and push and push. And I said, I understand it's unrealistic for you to do this, but would you still take a look at it for us and tell us what the cost would be to do that? Well, they finally acquiesced. They came out, they did their field analysis, and voila, it isn't that difficult to do that using an existing pole line to string fiber down to that location. So I was happy to hear that. The next question was, what's the cost? So we started to talk about the cost for this project, and we looked at the components of what type of cable to get down there, what's the best type of cable, is it a cable right now, is it a fiber line? And after some analysis, we decided, based on the growth of the plant and the technology, to string a cable down to that point, at this point, seemed fruitless or not really economical compared to running a single cable of fiber. It gives us better speed and more opportunities for data transfer and connections to all of our facilities. So we pursued that, and Spectrum came back to us and said, here's the cost to do this program. We can put you into a 5-year contract. We can give you a monthly cost. We can connect all of your facilities for you, provide you with this fiber. We can get this program up and running in about 90 days. And here's your monthly cost for this schedule. If you're not interested in a 5-year term to help us offset the cost of the capital to get down at the facility, you can pay the capital costs up front and have a lower monthly cost, if you will. I didn't think it was equitable for us to pay up front for the capital costs when we could spread this cost over 5 years, especially with some of our other projects that we have going on at this point. So what you have in front of you this evening is actually a Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement. And let me just talk about some of the financials here. We have a 5-year contract proposed with Spectrum Services. The total monthly cost associated with this project is $2,338, excluding taxes and fees. This cost includes fiber optic connectivity to all of our facilities and managed networks services for all SGWASA business centers. The total cost for this project is $28,056 per year, or $140,280 for the 5-year term. This project expense is included in the FY 24-25 budget. And during the past few months, SGWASA's attorney has reviewed and approved the proposed contract with Spectrum, and the contract is included in the attachment this evening. I'll be happy to stop there and answer any questions that the board members may have. And again, we have attachments, 2 of them this evening, the Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement and a Spectrum Enterprise Service Order. Thank you.
Any questions?
So, in looking at your contract on page 73 of our books, it says you have 5 static IP addresses for 36 months at 415 Central Avenue. And the other locations have the 5 static IP addresses for 60 months. That's the only difference that I noticed, that one says 36 and everything else is 60.
You know, that's a good catch, right on the top there. There's no fee for that, but we can get that amended. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, all the other columns have 60 in it.
Mm-hmm. Everything else in the contract was in order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
That's right.
You're a boss.
Good catch.
Any additional questions?
Okay. Any additional questions, comments?
So I want to make sure I'm seeing this right. So $900 for one building, $719 for another building,
Mm-hmm.
and $719 for another building.
It's the speed. The
Yeah,
main hub is 200,
megabits per second.
Yeah.
That's
and the other
difference
two are
there.
100.
Which you'll see in the top table, and that's our administration building.
It's the data.
So where are you paying the extra money to have this cable ran? I don't see.
It's actually included in this 5-year contract, so it's incorporated into our monthly payment to include that capital cost.
So what is your
service
current monthly payment for this building?
for SGWASA non-fiber equipment, because we don't have fiber.
You don't have fiber currently.
No.
That big cost is getting the fiber to the wastewater treatment plant.
I agree, because I deal with fiber every day.
And it's not cheap to run, is it?
It's actually not too bad to run, but having somebody work on it is a lot.
Mm-hmm. And we're not proposing to manage that in-house. This is all a managed service for us, as far as all the computers, all the technology, the breakdowns and everything like that. Similar to, you would have a Spectrum cable run to your facility.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? We have a second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, we're down to comments from our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board of Directors. I greatly appreciate your attention this evening to all the items that were presented to you. I hope that you appreciated the presentation on the lead and copper rule revision and what we're doing. You'll continue to hear about this program for, well, until 2037, apparently, so stay tuned. If there's any additional information we can provide to you, let us know. I think that you'll be very pleased with the information we'll have on the website as far as the interactive maps and the information and the surveys. So we'll see how much buy-in we can get with those surveys, and then we'll start to put a program together to go out and identify those unknowns, which is still required for us to do. So again, thank you to John and his team for that. Just a reminder, upcoming for the Board of Directors, November 1st, which is a Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at this facility, we have a strategic planning session for the board members. This will be on site at Butner Town Hall. More information will be coming forth this week from Crystal. So if you would just hold the dates. I think that we've already decided in the past that was the best date for us. That was a Friday, so look forward to a lot of good information and a good lunch that day. So that's all I have this evening, although I'm going to request a closed session, Mr. Chair, for a personnel item.
All right. And Attorney Wren, you have anything for us
I
tonight?
don't have anything tonight.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the board members. Councilperson Judy Cheek?
None. Thank you.
None? Okay, thank you. Councilperson Vicki Daniels?
None.
None? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Robert Way?
Director Short, do you have any further update on the pump station in Creedmoor at Lake Rogers? I know they were going to do some testing.
Yeah, sure do. So this is the Lake Road Booster Station project that we've been working on most of the summer. This is to increase the chemicals that we put into that station to increase our chlorine residual in that line. So we have the pumps in place. We have the all the units plumbed in. We are doing a burnout right now, chlorine burnout throughout the entire city of Creedmoor system in preparation for bringing this online. And I believe that we are scheduled to have some chemicals delivered for testing next week in those systems so we can test the tanks and the equipment. And we look forward to getting that system online here within the next couple of weeks. So making great progress on that. Thank you.
That's all I had, sir.
All right. Commissioner Tim Karen.
No comments this evening.
All right. Commissioner Kenneth McClan.
No comments. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Georgiana Kaczynski, Vice Chair.
We doing this one? Crystal?
Yeah.
I see you have our SGWASA website on the screen. Can you please scroll down a little bit? I wanted to know, has everybody been out to the SGWASA, everybody on this board at least been out to the SGWASA website? So that's perfect. That's right where I need it. So we approved at our last meeting over $200,000 for water quality testing. And on the bottom of this screen, we see there's a water quality questionnaire. So if you would click on that, Miss Crystal, for me, please. And I'm going to ask the board members if you have you ever been out to this site? Anybody? I know
Yes,
you were
I
out
have.
there last night.
No, wait a minute. What site?
This site, the water quality questionnaire site.
On the web?
On the SGWASA website.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So since we have spent over $200,000 to study the water quality, I presented this to this Creedmoor board last night and asked that all the citizens of Creedmoor go out and fill out this questionnaire so we can start collecting data for our water quality study. If these forms aren't filled out, we have no data. We can't knock on every door and say, and ask all these questions. So I'm asking everybody who can hear me, and I'm asking all our board members to go back to their respective boards and ask their citizens to do the same thing. It was suggested to me last night that we put this in the bills, but my response to that was in 2020, when I got on this board, SGWASA spent over $38,000 sending a survey out to everybody. And a citizen in Creedmoor went on social media and told everybody in Creedmoor to rip up the survey and not do it. Butner's response was over 95%. It was perfect. STEM's response was over 90%. I believe Creedmoor's response was like 3% because a lot of people listened. We can't fix water if we don't know what's wrong with it. We can't determine where the repair needs to be if we don't know about it. So whether you have good water, bad water, whatever you feel about your water, everybody needs to fill this out and send it in so that the money we just spent, over $200,000 to get this water quality testing done, can be accurate, can be, we need this data collection, or else we've just wasted almost $250,000 of SGWASA ratepayers' money. And we don't want to do that. So if all the board members here will go back to their respective boards and ask their citizens to please fill this out, it's really important to get this right. We want to get it right. And we're not going to get it right if we're just flying by the seat of our pants.
May I add a comment to that?
Absolutely.
I've actually went on there and I kind of took it myself to see how long, and it doesn't take long at all.
No.
And I think a couple of months ago, I've actually shared it during our town meeting to everybody. But from what you're saying, maybe we need to just say it every meeting because it's once a month. I mean, it's not they're hearing it every day or every week.
Right.
So we can certainly add that to our comments.
Absolutely. I'm off my soapbox.
Okay. You get off the soapbox, I'll get on.
Go ahead.
It's extremely important that everybody know about this questionnaire and everybody fill it out. When somebody complains and says, my water stinks, you don't really have a way of tracking it. But with this document, you put down the day, the time that you observed the problem, what the problem was, and you have a data point where you can go back and see if you got other problems within the system, and if so, where they're at, if they, if it's all part of one problem in a certain area, or where it's at, or what it is. You can't track. Oh, when did you have a problem? Oh, all the time. Well, do you have it every day? Do fill a questionnaire out every day. If you don't, fill it out when you do have the problem. And if you, we have a certain amount of so-called community leaders that have kind of put the word out that SGWASA doesn't care, doesn't do you any good to fill out this, it doesn't do you any good to fill out that. You just don't respond. That's exactly opposite from solving any kind of problem we may have. When you keep the myth out there and you keep out there gaslighting the people to not respond, to keep quiet, don't say anything, don't fill out any surveys, don't fill out any questionnaires. When you do that, it tells you, it should tell the public one thing. These people are not interested in solving a problem. They're interested in creating an issue that they can piggyback on. So that's my comments. I'm off my soapbox, okay? And is there any other business to come before us before we adjourn and take a short break and then go into closed session? If there's no further business to come before us,
Motion to go into closed session.
we have a
Second.
motion and we have a second.
Yes.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene in closed session. We're in open session now. Is there any more business to come before the board? Hearing none, we entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. We are adjourned.